Funerals actually take a lot more planning than I expected. With us using island cuisine for the first time, of course we were iffy, but once they came and showed us their service, their food, tasted their food and everything, we definitely use them again because their service and food is just awesome.
I'll ride with the horses, I'll swim through the sea, I'll climb to the mountain tops, won't you come follow me? I'll take time to notice all that I see, and after I've come so far, you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. But life is a vision, that's how it should be. The world is a canvas, and the choices are free. At the end of the journey, where all is complete, they'll all wonder where I've gone, but you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. Our dreams last forever, for all that we know. The roads come together, and that's where we'll go.
The Pampas,
an elite
wish we go away.
because we are
real and direct.
no interest owns us.
And we have no interest but
The truth. Together we are exposing
corruption.
Together we will reform criminal justice
Together,
We are fighting violence
against women and children.
We here at
Candid
will shine the light
on every corner of darkness.
Together, we are giving a voice
to the voiceless.
and forgotten.
Stay lit.
Together.
Together,
Together.
together, together,
we are giving a voice to the voiceless and forgotten.
We are Candid News Group.
Buenos Marianas and Micronesia. I'm Troy Torres. Welcome to our studios here on the 7th floor of the DNA building in Hagutnia, Guam. Thank you for joining Kandit News tonight. We've got a whole lot of news to cover because there was a whole lot of news that came out over the weekend. News that you won't hear anywhere else, as a matter of fact. Why? I don't know. You got to ask the other places. But I'll guarantee we got it for you. Now, later tonight, we're going to have David Lubofsky in the studio. Now, David Lubofsky is the father of Asher Dean Lubofsky. And if you watch that beautiful piece that we had, that 3-minute piece that we play at the beginning of every show, that is the story of David Lubofsky's journey to get justice for his son and to prevent the grief that he goes through every day of his life from being another parent's situation and struggle. But before we get to that, we have some news to dispense with. The first is that a parole officer is looking for a parolee because on June 16, you can go ahead and cast to my screen. On June 16, the District Court of Guam received back a warrant that was executed on April 28 of this year. This was at the height of the coronavirus pandemic thing. And, you would think that, or maybe, I guess, people thought that since everyone was so busy with coronavirus, no one was going to be paying attention to drugs coming in the mail, but apparently they did. And there was a warrant for, because of information and belief that there would be drugs in this package, and there ended up being drugs, for a package addressed to Bianca Borja at 139 South Granada Court, Liguan Terrace, Dededo. Let me just show you where that is real fast. So here's a map. You see where the red pin is. Yes. This is this area right here. You see where the cursor is? That's the mall. So you take it's that back road from the mall into Liguan Terrace. You take the first left after the mall, and it's the third right. And it's in that court right there, South Granada Court, 139 South Granada Court. This is according to maps from Apple. Anyway, I just wanted to show you where that might be. Now, law enforcement applied for this warrant for a U.S. priority mail package bearing the printed address of Bianca Borja, 139 South Granada Court, Liguan Terrace, Dededo, Guam. It was signed by Judge Michael Bordallo when it was when it was issued on April 14. And what Task Force Officer Jay Calvo found was approximately 478 grams of crystal methamphetamine that field tested positive for it. Now, the reason that a Guam marshal, here it is, I'm sorry, this is the package. It was apparently from an Alejandro Leon in Walnut Avenue, Fullerton, California, addressed to Bianca Borja. It was a box. I mean, I guess it would have to be a box, right? What is 478 grams?
You see that notation there, the G 478 GG?
Yeah.
That stands for good grams.
Good grams?
Good grams.
I think that's close to 2 ounces of meth, if I'm not mistaken, because there are 28 grams in an ounce, correct?
I used to copy from you in math class.
From Dr. Stover's class?
Yes.
And 16 ounces in a pound, if I'm not mistaken. But 2 ounces of meth that's a big deal. And in the federal government, you can go to jail for a very long time. So the reason that a Guam parole officer is looking for Bianca Borja, who might be the person who would have who this was being mailed to. Now, it just says her name. It doesn't necessarily mean that she was really the recipient of it. I didn't do my hair, huh? I'm looking at the monitor thing right now. My hair is all over the place.
That's the Palau here.
It was a hot, humid day.
It was.
So like this raspberry Lipton tea
is
where? Hitting the spot.
Oh, it's the Polar Pop from Circle K.
Yes. That was so natural.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the reason a parole officer is looking for her is because she's on parole. And this is the kind of thing that can get you into a lot of trouble. Yep. Your name appearing in federal documents on a federal warrant that was executed and returned bearing images of federal illegal activity. This is not. If you guys know where Bianca Borja is, let her know to check with her parole officer, who is trying to find her right now.
Right.
Now, you know who was arrested in Hope, Idaho? I thought there was only a small town called Hope, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton was. Apparently, there's a Hope, Idaho. Unless Hope is remember when he was accepting his speech for when he was nominated for president? He was like, and who would have known that a boy from Hope would make it or something like that?
Arkansas.
I thought it was Arkansas and not Idaho. Anyway,
Why isn't it Kansas?
Arkansas, because I don't know.
And then, you know, Kansas.
It's French, right?
Kansas.
Maybe it was Kansas.
Right.
We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. We're not in Toltu anymore, Kansas. I had a friend named Kansas growing up. Anyway, so arrested in Hope, Idaho, is Junior Larry Hillbroom, along with Morgan Kenny and Sean Walton. And Morgan Kenny reportedly is Junior Larry Hillbroom's half brother.
Hey, Ole!
Ole, I did not know that this kid is not a kid. He's actually only 4 years. Did you know he's only 4 years younger than us?
Yeah.
He's 36 years old. He's pretty old. Like, if I consider he ain't no kid anymore. Anyway, so we all remember Junior Larry Hillbroom as the kid who won millions of dollars in a lengthy litigation against his father's bankers and trustees and all that stuff, who were making a claim to DHL tycoon Larry Hillbloom's billions that he made. He was a billionaire who lived in Saipan. He's the H in DHL worldwide. And there was a paternity test and all this stuff, or not paternity, but a DNA test. And I think that's where this building gets its name, the DNA building. Anyway, and you could just tell by looking at the kid that he was Larry Hillbloom's son. And it was a long drawn out thing in court. He ends up winning like $100 million or close to $100 million of his father's inheritance. And then soon after, not soon after that, but years go by and you start hearing of Junior Larry Hillbroom in the news. And it's not from his investments or anything like that, but because he's been getting in trouble, and he got into a lot of trouble recently. So he was in jail in Palau. He's lived on Guam. He's also a citizen of the Republic of Palau. And he was in jail there in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, on drug charges. And then they let him out so that he could do some, what do you call it? Treatment. Rehab in the mainland United States. And, you know, that didn't go very well. He's been a fugitive from the law in Palau. And he was just arrested by federal authorities in the District of Idaho on conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine charges. He faces up to 20 years in prison along with his co-defendants, up to $1 million in a fine, and at least 3 years of supervised release. This is a big deal. The Palau case involved the trafficking of methamphetamine from the Philippines to Palau using 2 female drug mules. That was based on stories back in 2017. But we all remember his name, and I guess this was big news over the weekend when this happened. Well, that's not the only crime happening. I mean, if he did it, like, that's allegedly and all that. You know, I really didn't think about a week ago, I called up the retirement fund, and little secret, if you want to know how many employees have worked in the government of Guam by agency on a certain day, the agency that has the most accurate listing or information on that is the retirement fund, except when it comes to the Guam legislature, and I'll explain. So when you become a Gov Guam employee in the executive or judicial branches, you are required, it is part of the law that you become a retirement fund member. So you would join either the defined contribution plan or I can't remember what the other one's called, but it's like a half pension plan or something. You have to become a retirement fund member. So every single employee, they call them warm body, every single warm body working under each agency would be counted over at the retirement fund. So last week I called up the retirement fund because I wanted to do a little comparison. I wanted to find out how many employees were working at the beginning of the Leon Guerrero administration by agency. So I asked for January 31, 2020. You know, you give the administration a month to get themselves in place, hire the people they need to hire, and January 31 is a pretty good date to start, 2019, right? And then I asked, you know, can you give me the latest report? Let's make it June 30, 2020, you know, the month that had just passed. And what we found was alarming, to say the least. So the governor is in control of a bunch of agencies, and she exerts political control over others. And then there's some agencies that she has absolutely no control over. So the agencies she has absolutely no control over, let's go with that list because that's much shorter. UOG, GCC, the public auditor, the attorney general, the public defender, the mayors, because the mayors control their own hiring and all that, the retirement fund, GPA, GWA, and Department of Education. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 out of these 10 fully autonomous agencies that are outside the scope of the governor's power or the governor's influence, 9 of them reported major decreases in the number of employees that they have. And it's understandable for Department of Education why they would be reporting a decrease in the month of June. And that's because it's the summer months and there are some employees who are no longer in the system or no longer on the rolls. So there's a bit of an anomaly when it comes to DOE. But for the rest of them, you know, you could just chalk this up to just plain old attrition of employees, or maybe they even fired people retired, whatever the case may be. These other 8 agencies that have nothing to do with the governor are doing their jobs with fewer people, at least by comparison from January 31, 2019 through June 30, 2020. But then when you look at the agencies that the governor controls, and I believe there are 32 of them. Yeah, there's 32 of them. 21 of them are reporting increases in personnel. Only 11 of them are reporting decreases, and just to top the pack. And it disgusts me to no end that as people in the private sector are suffering through as much as they're suffering through right now, that the governor's office itself is reporting a 12% increase in employment. It's so sick. They started with 114 employees in January of 2019. As of the latest report, 129 employees. They hired 15 more people. By contrast, the lieutenant governor's office has fewer employees. So kudos to Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. And there are agencies that where you would think that the increase is warranted, like Department of Labor. There's a 34% increase in personnel at Department of Labor. And you know, arguably, that's a good thing because of all the stuff that they have to do, right? But then, and there's also Guam Memorial Hospital, where you would think, okay, hopefully these are healthcare workers, maybe they're finance office workers, you know, things that they really need. Guam Memorial Hospital is showing the largest increase in personnel of 173, or a 16% increase from 939 employees to 1,112. But then there are these other agencies where you wonder, was this really necessary, especially considering the economic climate and just what's happening out there. The fact that, you know, what's fueling these agencies are the increase in taxes that people are suffering through right now, you know, because the governor and the legislature have not maintained their commitment or lived up to their commitment to roll back the BPT. That BPT increase is what's funding these increases in personnel. So you'll see a 20% jump in the Department of Administration. Was that crucial? Was that necessary? I don't know. An 18% jump at the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. I really don't think that was necessary whatsoever. There's been a 13% jump at the Adjutant General's office. The EPA is showing a 2% jump. Department of Chamorro Affairs. And, I'm not trying to diss the Chamorro culture or anything like that. But I just wonder, in comparison to, say, the Guam Police Department or the Guam Fire Department, Guam Fire actually took a cut in employees. Department of Chamorro Affairs is reporting a 24% increase in personnel. They go from 37 to 49 employees, and this is during the Leon Guerrero administration. These are just some telling numbers. If you haven't seen this spreadsheet yet, it's based off of the reports from the retirement fund. Go ahead and go to kanditnews.com, and it's one of the first 9 stories that are there, the first 9 in the block. I feel weird. I don't have my partner to riff with me right now. I'm not sure if Johnny's coming or if she's just running late, but hopefully she'll be here for the interview with Mr. Lubofsky. The hiring and how much the government of Guam, the taxpayers and the ratepayers, are paying for employees is at the top of Public Auditor BJ Cruz and Attorney General Levin Camacho's minds. So much so that they've decided back in November of last year that they were going to conduct performance audits into 4 key autonomous agencies, the agencies where there seems to be a preponderance of evidence showing that the way that they were paying their top employees, meaning management, was not being done legally. And those audits, a series of audits started. The public auditor released his first audit, and that was into Guam Waterworks and Guam Power Authority. That audit led to action by the Attorney General, which led to the payback of raises that management was getting over at those 2 agencies. And last week, the public auditor continued with his series by releasing a performance audit on the seaport and into the illegal hiring of Joanne Brown and into several illegal pay raises that she received retroactively. And now those audits, or that audit, is going to the Attorney General. And we've received information from the Attorney General's spokeswoman that it is under consideration on whether this case is going to move forward for prosecution against Joanne Brown, bringing criminal prosecution against Joanne Brown, basically for what she did and what members of the board did. It really is theft from the people.
Yep.
I don't know how else. What else do you call it when someone takes something that's not theirs in an inappropriate way? When it was not a gift, it was not an earning, but it was something that was taken the wrong way. Isn't that just the definition of theft? Right. So the Guam Daily Post decided to go berserk on BJ Cruz. And I can't, for the life of me, figure out why, except to think that I think this is because Oya Nungarigla, who was the director of communications for Governor Calvo in his final term, now is the editor over at the Guam Daily Post. And, it is an editorial that the Guam Daily Post ran that was critical of BJ Cruz and very defensive of Joanne Brown, which is weird because when BJ Cruz did the audits against GPA and GWA, the Guam Daily Post awarded him with the number 2 top story, the second top story of 2019, being those audits. So they've made this about face, and so BJ Cruz called them out on it just last night. And he wrote this response, and we ran it on our website. And there are some interesting things that he says in his response. And one of them is that, he's not being political. This was all part of a process that began in November. And as a matter of fact, he says, we're going to be releasing another audit by the end of the fiscal year, and it's about Gura. And so he keys us in, the public, into, what and Kandit reported on this last year in April. It was the pay raises that ex-executive director Michael Duenas received from the board of directors of Gura when during the Calvo administration, and how those raises were not done legally. And we found this out because we had done our investigation into Joanne Brown's illegal pay raises, and then we saw that the same thing was happening over at Gura. So it was a complaint that we made. And anyway, fast forward to now, BJ Cruz is saying, well, sure, Joanne Brown is running for senator, but Mike Duenas isn't.
Right.
You know, so if you're saying that this is politically motivated, you're dead wrong, because this audit is about, and he makes it pretty clear, and these are, he says, the issue and legality of certain pay raises and bonuses in the government of Guam, whether at GPA, GWA, or the Seaport, have been brewing for years, and the people of Guam are fed up. Just straight up, he says that. The people of Guam are fed up. And I agree with him. He says, the Office of Public Accountability takes extraordinary measures with every audit issued. Every word and number in our audits must be supported with evidence. We have a quality control reviewer, independent of the audit, come in and scrutinize the audit to ensure all the evidence is supported and no stone is left unturned. And so what really jumps out to me in this response from BJ Cruz, aside from this whole Gura thing, and you know, that was, I feel like that was a bone that he gave to all of the media. He was like, hey, guess what? I'm doing this Gura audit too.
Yep.
But what really jumps out to me is that throughout this response, he pays particular attention to the message that we left no stone unturned. You know, we were very detailed about this because when we turn this over to the Attorney General, we want the Attorney General to have what the Attorney General needs to prosecute crimes, if that's what the Attorney General decides to do. He says so. He says, to put it simply, the devil is in the details, and further prosecutorial action from the Office of the Attorney General, if necessary, would require each circumstance to be outlined. I just love it. I love it so much. This guy is like, he's the candid hero of the weekend, along with, he's not the only candid hero of the weekend. Because he's not the only one who's fed up with everything that's going on, or with the stealing of money and resources and the putting down of people that certain public officials have gotten away with for so long. So is Saipan Congresswoman Tina Sablan. She is just about tired of Public Safety Commissioner Robert Guerrero, and she's saying so for sure. So before we get to her, I want to play. Go ahead and cast to my screen again. We're gonna play a little bit from Wednesday's budget hearing between of the Ways and Means Committee over at the House in Saipan, and in the little box is Representative Tina Sablan. And in the big box, the big heifer in the blue is Robert Guerrero, the Commissioner on Public Safety. Oh, I had to face my microphone there, right? Yeah.
Specifically, this would be subpart 200, which deals with reduction in force. So, my first question is, did you consult with the Office of Personnel Management or the Civil Service Commission before determining which officers to furlough?
I don't believe furlough is a reduction in force.
A furlough under the civil service regs, if it is longer than 30 days, is considered a reduction in force and should follow the reduction in force process.
Okay, so number two, yes, OPM was consulted with regards to, as a matter of fact, the format to issue these letters were issued by OPM.
Mm-hmm. And you did consult with them?
Yes.
You did. And all 13 of your, or 11 of your furloughed employees are civil service employees, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you or your legal counsel consult with the civil service regulations before determining which officers to furlough?
I'm not sure if it does, because we don't have a permanently assigned assistant AG to us. Mm-hmm. It's actually just the AG that we work with directly. So I can't answer your question on that.
So you did not consult with the AG?
The letters, my understanding, went through the AG.
But did you yourself?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you review the civil service regulations?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Are you aware that a reduction in force is for lack of work or funds?
Lack of funds, yes.
Yes, and that applies in this case.
Yes.
The civil service regulations also say that a reduction in force in this instance is not for disciplinary action.
Yes.
Now, your earlier statement that your decision was based on performance and loyalty sounds like these were furloughs that were in fact based on disciplinary action.
No.
How do you respond to that?
No, I don't agree with you.
Why not?
Because, like I said, if you interview somebody, do you hold somebody against them, or should they hold something against you because you didn't hire them?
We're talking about furloughs and reduction in force pursuant to the
And I'm
civil
answering
service
you
regulations.
that it was based on, it was my evaluation that who I decide to furlough based on the need.
Did you yourself make the decision
Yes, I did.
unilaterally,
Yes.
based on performance and loyalty?
Yes, I did.
So it was not just on lack of funds.
The reduction that was related to us was we don't have enough money, we need to reduce our personnel.
Mr. Commissioner, are you aware that the civil service regulations state that the policy of the government is for the appointing authority, in this case you, to exhaust all administrative alternatives to place the employee in another position before the reduction in force is instituted, with minimum negative impact on operations and employees? Did you follow that? Did you
Yes.
exhaust all administrative
Yes.
alternatives? And what did you do?
Well, I furloughed them.
Prior to furlough, you are required to follow and exhaust all administrative alternatives.
We furloughed them because of lack of funds. There's no other alternative means that I have. That was the main reason that they were furloughed.
So, I mean, what a liar. Just straight up. What a liar. Just lying straight to their faces. So first he says, I furloughed them for performance and loyalty, which in itself is a problem. The loyalty part, that's a problem. But let's just skip that for a second. Then Representative Tina Sablan says, so you know what the law says, that it's for funding, not for performance and loyalty. And he says, yeah, I furloughed them because of funding. And then she goes at him again. She grills him even further. And then he says, it was because of performance and loyalty. Yeah, that's how I made the decision. And then she says, I thought you said it was about funding. He says, yes. So this is the worst kind of person, you know? Right. The one who thinks that the people he's talking to are stupid, yes, but is himself an idiot. That's just the worst kind of this. And he sits there. He sits there consuming the entire chair, yep, unable to form any clear statement that makes any sense to any reasonable person. And he lies straight to this committee. And this is the House Ways and Means Committee that he's lying to. So Representative Tina Sablan just had it with the guy. And the very next day, before the full House, she made a statement to the House, and I want to read it to you because it's lovely. She's just done with him. She says, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, as many of us saw from the Department of Public Safety's budget hearing yesterday, Wednesday, July 15, the commissioner threw a bit of a tantrum when asked about nepotism in his department. He acted in a way that is unbecoming of his position and disrespectful not just to me, but also to this body. Chairman Blanco, I'd like to thank you for interjecting to restore order and decorum in that hearing. But to me, colleagues, what is even more troubling than the commissioner's belligerent conduct is that he also essentially acknowledged that he violated the civil service regulations and the rights of the police officers that he furloughed. He did not consult with legal counsel. He did not even bother to read the regulations. Instead, Commissioner Guerrero unilaterally made the decision to furlough police officers based, in his words, on performance and loyalty. This is not in compliance with the civil service regulations, which are intended to ensure fairness and orderliness when reductions in force must be made for lack of funds and to protect civil service employees and recognize seniority of service. Performance and loyalty. What exactly did the commissioner mean by that? He couldn't explain. And if we talk to the officers that he chose to furlough, I will bet you with confidence that many of them will be able to show exemplary records of public service. Some of them have been in the force for 2 decades, certainly longer than the commissioner's sons and other relatives and loyalists who remain at DPS. Some of them are decorated military veterans who served our country honorably and deserve far better than the treatment they got. And by the way, he furloughed these police officers at a time when the department has continued to pay overtime, including overtime to the commissioner himself, who is not legally eligible in the first place. As if to justify his additional COVID-19 pay, he said moving boxes on a runway is not a regular part of his duties. He's right, it's not. Surely there were other COVID-19 assigned staff who could have done that job. Further, when the commissioner claimed that the furloughed police officers were advised of their rights to appeal their furloughs pursuant to the civil service regulations, that was a blatant misrepresentation of facts. After the hearing, I received a copy of one of the furlough letters he sent out, and it actually advises the officers that they have no option to appeal, which is just plainly wrong, according to the civil service regulations. I hope they all appeal. Frankly, I hope they all sue. That would be within their rights. These are abuses of power, colleagues, happening within DPS. The question is, what are we going to do about it? DPS has long been overdue for oversight. In yesterday's budget hearing, we covered just a sampling of the many, many areas of concern and abuse. I know that we are in the middle of the budget process. I know that there are legislative investigations already underway. My plate is full too. But I think more scrutiny on DPS is also necessary. Public safety is paramount, and the well-being of our community rests so much on the morale and well-being of our police officers and the integrity and honor of their department and their leadership. A final note on the rights of civil service employees generally. What I wonder, colleagues, is how widespread the violations are in the administration's implementation of this reduction in force. How many other employees across our government have been furloughed or for performance and loyalty? Let's call it what it is, for politics. Senators raised some of these questions about the furlough process in one of their hearings last week, but it's not clear to me that answers were actually delivered or that problems were actually fixed. I think we need to probe more, and I respectfully request, Mr. Speaker, that we call in the Office of Personnel Management and the agency heads who have implemented furloughs to meet us and answer our questions. Bravo, Congresswoman Tina Sablan, and someone said it. The fact that the Judiciary Committee, if I'm not mistaken, the Criminal Justice Committee has not held an oversight of this department that is led by this buffoon who just blatantly breaks the law in front of people's faces. And all he does is carry the governor's bags when he gets off of the tarmac, or when he gets onto the tarmac getting off of the airplane, says something about the need for a better form of criminal justice in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, at least one that is led by someone who is competent and not so interested in only hiring his family while he furloughs decorated military veterans and pays himself overtime because he had to carry boxes at the airport. Bravo to Congresswoman Tina Sablan. Lou Marciano says, kudos to Congresswoman for such an exemplary example of how to conduct and inquire on budget hearings. Hopefully they look into other departments as well. And that was one of the points that Ms. Sablan made. Lanzo Todi says, how was the state allowed to charge citizens for local traffic tickets at a state level that was just theft? Where's that at? Sabranga Andra says, she is so right. Mike and Grace Blas says, I'm appalled. Gina Call says, reminds me of how Lester Carlson talks to people, like when the legislature calls him into question about the budget. Yes, Lester Carlson, Joanne Brown, Robert Guerrero, this is just all peas in the same pod. Rita Arceo says, he's confused, stick with your story. That's just the thing about good liars. I don't know if they're good liars, but the thing about people who just don't ever want to be held accountable or to take responsibility is the lie will just come out. Yep. No matter what you said just 3 seconds ago. Yep. You're willing to lie. And even if it's on TV and even if it's before a government tribunal, you'll just lie. And why? Why do you think Robert Guerrero thinks that's okay? It's because his buddy, his boss, the governor, doesn't hold him accountable for his actions. Maybe even encourages action like that. because of whatever else might be covered up. Hi, Trex and Erky. Guam Chef says Tina is like our Senator Therese Yerlahi. Yes, you're talking about Tina Sablan. Tina Sablan is very much like our Therese Yerlahi here on Guam. That's a great comparison. Glenn Hunter says Representative Tina Sablan has been consistent and has always put the needs of the people first, even at the expense of her own well-being. Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she is awesome. Jill Pareto says, I never saw a button-nosed chin before. So Robert Guerrero is not the only law enforcement officer who's received the ire of our news reports this weekend. We have great news to report to you. If you haven't seen our story yet about movement in the rape case against former police officer AJ Balajadia, please go to our website and view it now. The Guam Police Department has responded to Larry Rupley, the man who is in his 40s now and lives in the States. When he was a little boy back in the 80s, AJ Balajadia, according to Larry Rupley, forcibly raped him, stuck a sock in his mouth, and penetrated him anally. And there's Larry spent quite some time with us on the phone in an interview that we were able to capture. And we've played this a couple of times before. And if you want to see it, it's on our website as well. So Larry what happened was 4 years ago, Larry finally came back to Guam. He saw that AJ Balajadia had these signs up on the road. He's running for senator at the time. And Larry thought, man, this guy cannot be a senator. He just can't have nothing to do with kids. Because in Larry's words, I know what he did to me. And so Larry sought some justice back then, 4 years ago. It was a little more quiet than he was now. He just wanted AJ to pull out of that race, and he wanted AJ to, he wanted some closure. And so he sought out the administration at the time. It was the Calvo administration, and I personally know this to be true. And he was set up in a meeting with AJ Balajadia, and the Republican Party of Guam at the time made some promises to Larry that they were going to take care of this whole mess and get him some closure. Well, it went absolutely nowhere, and every door was closed on his face. And last year, Larry thought, I'm not going to take this anymore. And he decided he was going to file a criminal complaint. New administration, new chief of police. By the way, the chief of police back then, 4 years ago, was your current Republican candidate for Senator Joseph I. Cruz, or J.I. Cruz. He absolutely knew about this and did nothing but protect his fellow police officer, AJ Balajadia, and his fellow Republican, AJ Balajadia. And so just such a sad story for Larry through all these years. And mind you, before 4 years ago, he hadn't told anyone. It was this nightmare that he lived in his head for decades. And when he finally sought help, doors were shut in his face by people at the highest levels of our government. So last year, different administration, different chief of police, he files a criminal complaint. And Larry really thought that it was going nowhere until last night. He gets an email from the detective at the Guam Police Department that says that they finished their investigation and they forwarded the police report to the Attorney General's office for criminal prosecution and indictment. Good job, Guam Police Department. That really does help to restore some hope, some confidence, some faith in the justice system, because if he didn't do that, this man, what hope would he have for criminal justice? And many of us who are survivors of church abuse over the past 7 decades, we will never be able to see criminal justice done in our cases because the statute of limitations had passed. The thing about Larry Rupley's case against AJ Balajadia is the irony of it all is that there's this law on the books that says that if you committed a crime during your time in public service while you're a government of Guam employee, the statute of limitations doesn't actually run out until 3 years after you leave government service. So the most ironic thing about this is, had AJ Balajadia left government service when Larry Rupley approached him 4 years ago, the statute of limitations would have run out already. But because he didn't, because he stayed in and he only retired last year, the statute continues to run, and AJ Balajadia can actually be charged with a crime. He can actually go to jail, and we'll see how far this goes. We'll see where Mr. Rupley's lawyers, how far Mr. Rupley's lawyers can influence the process and get an indictment going from the Attorney General's office. But the police department believes that they have found evidence and testimony to substantiate Larry Rupley's claim, and based on that belief, they forwarded this information in their report to the Attorney General's office. Now it's up to the Attorney General's office to build a case they can bring before the grand jury for an indictment and then to bring to trial. And so justice for Larry Rupley. When we return, we're going to talk about justice for Asher Dean Lubofsky and making sure that the call for justice because how can there ever be a measure of true justice when a father is grieving for his son? When we come back, we're going to have David Lubofsky. Give us 5 minutes.
Funerals actually take a lot more planning than I expected. With us using island cuisine for the first time, of course we were iffy, but once they came and showed us their service, their food, we tasted their food and everything, we definitely use them again because their service and food is just awesome.
I'll ride with the horses, I'll swim through the sea, I'll climb to the mountain tops, won't you come follow me? I'll take time to notice all that I see, and after I've come so far, you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. But life is a vision, that's how it should be. The world is a canvas, and the choices are free. At the end of the journey, where all is complete, they'll all wonder where I've gone, but you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. boats come together, and that's where we'll go.
Welcome back, and thank you, and welcome to our studios, Mr. Lubofsky.
Thank you.
Oh, can I call you David?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that's for like a year I've been calling you Mr.
No,
Lubofsky.
David's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, David. Welcome back to Guam.
Thank you.
How was quarantine?
Quarantine 3 months in the Philippines, and then which was crazy, and then 2 weeks here. So I don't know. It was okay.
Your son Azrael, who is a year older than Asher Dean, right?
Yes.
Can you tell our audience why he never comes back to Guam with you?
Azrael is afraid to come back to Guam. Last time I said, Azrael, we need to go back. I want you to go back to Guam, and he freaked out. He doesn't want to come back. He said, I'm not going to die. I don't want to die. So he refuses to come back. Come back to Guam. He's still, of course, he's still dealing with the loss of his brother, but he won't come back to Guam. And I'm not going to push it. Not now, anyways. Maybe in the future, but he will not return.
He's 9 now?
No, he's a 7 now.
Oh, 7?
Yeah.
Oh, he's tall. Well, you're tall.
Yep. He's going to be 8. He's going to be 8 at the end of August.
Okay. Well, all right. So for the past year, we linked up, what was that, February or something of last year?
Yes.
To tell your story for the first time from
Yes.
with Kandit.
Yes.
And that was a very hard interview to get through.
Very hard.
A very hard interview to get through. And it was the first time that I'd heard all the details about what happened, and it was the first time our audience heard all of those details. A year and a half basically has passed now, and we've been trying to get the Guam legislature to reform the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act, which is what stands in the way of people like you from holding doctors accountable for their actions. And nothing's happened, basically.
Nothing's happened. When this tragedy first happened, and I found out about this arbitration act, this Forced Arbitration Act, I had approached every senator, 15 of them, wrote them letters. 3 arranged to meet with me, in which they did. Senator Moylan, Senator Talatagui, and Senator Teresa Talai met with me. Mm-hmm. We had a meeting. And I got, I think, an email from one of them with the condolences. But none of the other senators ever responded, never got involved, never even sent an email back to acknowledge, but they received it. And there was also, I did some follow-up, and also I think that Guam Post did follow-up with them. So that was then. So here we are now. What's happening since then is, there were 3 informational hearings that
Yes.
Senator Talahi, and I thank her very much for that. 3 informational hearings that they had at the legislature, 3 different dates.
With a lot of interest from people.
A lot of interest from people. Doctors were there, and so forth and so on. And it was 3 different dates. But as I recall, there were Senator Teller was there, Taitagui, and Senator Talahi was there. And I think and the speaker walked and was there for a while, and I think Amanda Shelton walked in and left. But as far as I can remember now, no other senators expressed interest. No other senators showed up, and I never heard from anyone. So once that ended, of course, I continue to follow up. I write things on Facebook. I put things on my son's celebration of Asher's page, and so forth. I put things in the newspaper, on your site, writing and whatever. And the whole idea is to keep people aware that we are on. I use a bridge. We are on one side of this bridge. We, not just the parents who have lost children, and there are many of us, but also those who have lost loved ones. Mm-hmm. Many people.
Or their loved ones have been butchered.
And not just death, but as you said, like with injury and so forth. Since this all began, I get, on a daily basis, I hear a news story. Somebody will email me, they'll message me, they'll ask me my opinion, and that's great, because that's all in Asher's name and part of his legacy. But that continues on, and there's been no progress at all in this whole thing. And recently, as we start approaching elections, I started to contact senators again. And I contacted several of them already. I gave you a list. And I also contacted some of the new folks running for office. And I said, what do you think about this? Do you have a position that we can know about for the election? What percentage of your campaign funds come from the medical the medical industry and so forth? And no one responded except for Chris Carrillo. And I wrote to him 3 times, and finally I wrote something on his Facebook page, and maybe that's why he had to respond, and so forth. And
wait, can just on that point, real quick, new candidates. I'm a little surprised that you are. What?
He needs to get to the camera.
Oh, the new candidates. I'm very much surprised that, you know, for as much hype as we've given to new candidates, that you would let an inquiry by David Lubofsky go like this and not respond to him. How long has it been since you wrote that email?
At least a week, maybe more, maybe longer.
A week or longer.
And I'm going to be writing again.
To get a simple acknowledgement that you received the email.
No, I'm sorry. All those were by Messenger, because they listed Messenger.
Messenger. Oh, okay. So guys, check your Messenger account.
Yeah, I think that they do, because they light up, and you can see that they've seen them, or someone's seen them, or maybe it's a staff person.
Well, we're going to ask them, because we're going to invite new candidates, and we're definitely going to ask them.
Yeah, and I sent to some senators. I plan on sending again. And this is an open invitation to senators. What is your position on this bill? What is your position on this law? Do you plan on repealing it? Do you plan on adjusting it? Or do you just plan on letting us go on? Not just laws with children who have passed away or injured or whatever. It's all of us in the community. Almost everyone that I've spoken to, well, my mama, my dad, my uncle, my whatever, my cousin, everyone has a story. And it doesn't change. And why doesn't it change? I think it doesn't change because the people who can make the change, I'm sorry to say this, the people who can make the change benefit from keeping it the way it is.
How so?
Okay, let's take Louise. Let's take one senator. It comes to the top of my head. Louise Muñoz. Based on the information that you came up with and the research that you all did, she gets a significant amount of campaign funds from the medical industry.
Yes.
She even gets money from a donation from Dr. Cruz, who's the head of the Guam Regional Medical Center, as an example. And they have many complaints up there, and they have malpractice cases for injury, deaths, and so forth. We have a veteran who's picketing in front of them. We have an invalid's father is there. It goes on and on. She gets donations. So what else can you think? I mean, conflict of interest and the appearance of conflict of interest.
Sure.
You know, even if it's not true, the appearance is clear. She gets money. She got campaign funds. She gets this from the doctors. So what benefit is it for her to all of a sudden stand up and say, we need to change this law? She loses a significant amount of campaign funds.
Yep.
Now, I could be...
And that's just one senator.
No, that's just one senator. You know, we're talking about also, you did research on Senator St. Augustine. Also, same. Gets I think about 20% of his campaign funds comes from the medical industry. Yep. There's no motivation to make changes when there's money that's behind it. Going back to Senator Louise as an example. Not only is it's blatant, but just think about the legislation that the bill she's just recently trying to pass. She's trying to make one doctor, one clinic as the provider for 3D imaging for breast cancer.
Monopoly.
Monopoly. Yeah. What is that all about?
Well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same question. Now, I'm sorry, don't mean to pick on her, but I'm trying to raise it as an issue. And I think when you start going across the board, okay, then you have somebody else whose family is in the medical industry. And you have a person whose family members are doctors. And you go across the board. Those things become more important than providing for their constituents. When you become senator, you're supposed to put those things apart and think about your constituents. And the other thing is the law is really not even necessary, because As an example, Aetna Insurance has a clause. Someone sent it to me that says, if there's any problem with our providers, we reserve the right for arbitration. That's in their clause. Most insurance companies, maybe not on Guam, but in the States, have clauses like that. Okay, let's say I want to go see, my family's going to go see Dr. Shea. We're having a child. In his, I don't know if he has it, but he can put that in his clinic. Okay, if we have a problem, if there's any medical issues, we will go to arbitration. Individually, doctors can do that. SDA clinic can do that individually. We don't need the senators to come up with a public law that discriminates against the majority of people on the island and favors the ones who are providing donations to them. We don't need that. The doctors can do it individually. And maybe they don't want to do it individually because they'll be challenged on doing that. And instead, they scapegoat it and let the senators do it. We don't even need the law. It's not necessary.
Well, you've seen our coverage on not just arbitration, the MMMA, but also on other issues where, like take, for instance, the insurance issue. The other big contributor to senatorial and gubernatorial campaigns is the insurance industry. And how many times has a senator tried to change the insurance rules in the middle of the year? Just the pervasive culture of corruption that in the government of Guam,
Well, that's also, when you speak about that, you're also talking about the birth of the arbitration law. The birth of the arbitration law is actually 40 years ago. Then that was found unconstitutional. Then it was rewritten 30 years ago. And the main people that pushed it at that time was Guam Memorial Health Plan. Jim Gilliam. He came and just going along with what he was saying. There's the health insurance companies. I think Francis Santos at that time was involved.
Staywell, is it Staywell?
Yeah, was it? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Involved in it, and they pushed this, and they said, "Oh, doctors are afraid to they're going to be sued for malpractice, and they're doing too many tests, and they're doing too much of this, and they're doing too much of that. So we have to have this law to protect our doctors." Translation: what they're saying is, at that time, they're saying the insurance company has to pay for all these tests, and we don't want them doing it. But they use the doctors.
But the cost of insurance now is cheaper or more affordable, right? For this malpractice stuff.
Yeah, malpractice insurance nowadays is a lot cheaper than
it was back then.
Yeah, because we have way more doctors
so
here.
Times have changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, back then the problem with it, and I'm going by what Attorney Trapp said, who by the way, who challenged the law and found that when it was found unconstitutional.
Yeah, the original law.
Yeah, the original law. Back then he said that that there wasn't enough doctors. That's why there's a problem with insuring. But he also said, which contradicts to what other people say, including Jim Gillian. He said, "Well, there's not that many cases, anyways, malpractice cases. So the whole it was almost like they went to the doctors and say, we're doing you a favor. We're going to do this so you can't be sued." Some of the doctors, and this was a quote from the Guam Post. Some of the doctors at that time didn't like it. Other groups didn't like it. They didn't like it because it forced arbitration on people, denied them right to jury trial. This was in the Guam Post when they did the research, and that's exactly what it is. So yes, big insurance companies are, of course. So when you talk about senators who are related to insurance companies, this is all part of it. They put these personal benefits ahead. Now, there's a lot of arguments that people can make, as you know. Oh, we can't get doctors to Guam. Oh, we can't do this. We can't do that. Those arguments are depleted. Those arguments don't.
Not anymore.
Yeah, those arguments are not true. That's the default argument that they're saying. Oh, we can't get doctors. Well, let me tell you, Guam doctors, on average, are the highest paid in the country. And I have a reference to that if somebody needs to see it, are the highest paid in the country. It's easy to get people to come to Guam. And the doctors that they're talking about they can't get to come to Guam, are we talking about doctors that successful practices and they're making big bucks in the States and we want them to come to Guam? Well, I don't think they're going to be worried about $25,000 in malpractice insurance or whatever if they're that kind of a doctor, because we're going to be making money here. It's just the opposite. What the law has done, and you can thank the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, Nathaniel Berg and his crew about this, and I can give you many examples. What they've done is they've made it so it attracts people who can't work in the States or who have problems
Or
getting
horrible
insurance.
doctors
You said it. Yes, absolutely. And who can't work in the States.
who have 5 or 6 claims of sexual abuse under their belts.
Exactly.
Come to Guam.
Come to
Practice
Guam.
here.
Berg knew about this. No problem. Come on out. Whatever his reasoning was. They ended up at Guam Behavioral Health. 6 different complaints. Finally, Berg and the board decided to do
Because
it.
he's just to be clear, he's the chairman of the Guam Board of Medical
Yeah, he's
Examiners.
The one that allows you to
and they
practice.
license the,
Yeah.
They
the
licensed,
doctors.
but that's not the first time that they've done that.
I just wanted to be clear for our audience.
Yeah. Guam, Nathaniel Berg is the chair of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, and they're the ones that license people. And they're the ones, and I was at their meeting when they said this, we will accept any doctor that meets minimal requirements. Okay, what does that mean, minimal requirements? You're breathing, you pass the basic test, and so forth. Because what they've shown is they've taken people here who have histories of malpractice, and that's where the law benefits them. People with a history of malpractice can come to Guam, and that's not the only one. There's a doctor practicing, I think, still on Guam. He had a $300,000 case aside, medical negligence case aside against him. In the States, he was there. He had, I think, in 2 or 3 different places, he had medical negligence. The board saw it. I'm not sure if Nathaniel Berg was the chair of that time. The board saw it and said, no problem, come to Guam. Came to Guam, did the same thing. So the question that we have to ask ourselves, how many doctors on Guam now have a history of medical negligence from the States or someplace else and are practicing and we don't know about? This law protects them. There's no way to find out. Nathaniel Berg and the Guam Board of Medical Examiners is supposed to have that information on their website. And they're supposed to have had that information on their website for 8 years. Oh, so we don't have money, we can't do it, blah, blah, blah. No.
So the information that would tell people, like if you wanted to look up, is my doctor a quack, you would go to this website to see how many cases have been against this doctor wherever they practice in the States.
8 years ago, at that time, Senator Tina Mooney Barnes passed this law called Protecting Patients through Information Act. The purpose of it is that the Guam Board of Medical Examiners on their site or and other related sites would provide information about doctors who have complaints against them or have a history of malpractice or whatever. So in other words, let's say you decide to take your kids to a pediatrician and you don't know who to choose. You can go to that site and you can read up about it. That was 8 years ago.
I can tell you why that law was created, actually. That's for a whole other conversation. But interestingly, it has to do with Robert Guerrero. But anyway.
No,
go ahead.
That law was created 8 years ago. And everybody said, kudos, Speaker, you did a good thing, except for one small problem. They never enforced it. The law just sat there. Every single year, the Guam Board of Medical Examiners sat there and never did anything, and our senators allowed it. So when we start talking about arbitration and that, you have to look at the bigger picture. Nathaniel Berg didn't want to enforce that law, didn't want to put it on his books. They're doing it now because we brought it up during the information hearings, but they didn't want to do it back then, and now we're doing it. Now they're starting to do it finally, but
so can we go onto the website now and find our doctor's name?
No. There's some information now.
And this breeds them strong-arming people out of here. Good doctors that they don't like. The good
like
doctor.
Dr. George Macris.
Like the lady at GMH, the small lady.
Dr. Shimabukru.
Yes.
Right? I know another one right now, so I'm not going to say the name of the doctor. I just heard this, and I even spoke to the doctor recently, and they're trying to get him out because he doesn't buy into this whole this whole elitist attitude, this medical culture. He's not buying into it. He wants to treat his patients and do his own thing.
Dave, let me ask you. Let's say, because Senator Teresa, she was the one who led those hearings, right? So maybe she does have a bill that, it's going to come out. Let's say something passes the Guam legislature, the 35th Guam legislature, before the election, let's just say. And it was a good bill, and it reformed medical malpractice mandatory arbitration here on Guam. How would it make you feel, and what would your next step be?
Well, I'm a realist, and I know and I'm being practical. I know the law will never be repealed outright. It could be repealed, and medical businesses could have their own on their books. They could say arbitration required. It could happen, but as a realist, and after going through all this with different senators and with the information hearings, and some ideas came up. Senator Talatatiqui had great ideas. So did Senator Teresa Lai. They have great ideas. But when it came down to push the shove, some bill came out of Senator
Barnes.
And they would.
I think she rushed to get some credit on it.
They asked me if they could put Ash's name on it before the bill came. That's another story. No, being a realist, anything that would change is so that folks who lose or are injured or lose family members, children, relatives, or that are injured due to medical negligence can go through a process, and not a process that's controlled by a conflict of interest on Guam. Even Mitch Thompson, who's the lawyer for all the doctors in the insurance company, his words were, doctors on Guam are not going to judge each other. He said that during the information hearings, and that's probably one of the only things he said I agree with. But that's true. So any law that comes up, and we did give, I gave ideas for laws, and a lot of people came. That would be good. I changed. I know it's not going to be a total repeal and have a nice day. No, anything that would be good.
I know that these senators think that. They know something's wrong with it, because the last time we published something and we said we're going after them, we received phone calls saying, hey, wait a minute. We're getting a board together so we can all get everybody on board, Mr. Lubofsky and everybody, and let's get them in. So, and then it stopped from there.
When the thing dies down,
yeah,
they die down.
Yes,
as well.
Absolutely.
So I know they know that there's something wrong with this, but I think they're afraid because it all comes down to money.
Yeah, well, it also comes down to this. I'm sorry, Troy, but it also comes down to this. What I plan on doing as time goes on, I plan on publishing a list of those senators, like Senator Louise, and publishing a list and asking people if you're concerned about health care and improvement of health care and negligence on Guam and so forth in your family's health. These are the senators that you do not vote for.
They've been taking money.
These are senators who have been making money off the backs of patients who've had individuals who've had dead relatives or people that are injured. They just washed their hands and walked away. And I don't care if some senators watch it. Oh, you shouldn't be saying that. Blah blah blah. Making somebody mamalo. I don't care about that.
But yeah, this is the point that This is why I asked you that last question. Is I want people to see that you really don't have any dog in the fight. That what happens when this law is passed, let's just say it does, let's say a whole repeal happens, it doesn't bring Asher Dean Lubofsky back to life.
It doesn't bring Asher Dean Lubofsky back to life, and nothing is going to do that. And it's hard for me to say this, but there's there's not two tragedies. There's one tragedy, losing my son. But then when the doctors say to you, okay, have a nice day, and walk out of the room, go wash their hands, and then go see the next patient with no accountability, it worries me. A doctor can kill 5 people on Guam, as an example, in a week, and there's no reporting. We don't know about it. So yes, it doesn't bring Asher back, but I've been through hell losing my son. And what it does is, I'll know that some parent, some father, some daughter, whoever loses a loved one, won't go through this. And if they go through this, they'll have a step that they can take where they can get a process to hold someone accountable. It's the same thing. Guam doctors are held to no accountability compared to every single person on the island and every single person in the country. They need to be held to some accountability. Imagine this. Imagine if you're a police officer, right, as an example, and you beat the hell, this going along with the national climate, you beat the hell out of somebody on the street, and then you file a report with Internal Affairs, and they tell you, well, you have to go through arbitration. We can't do anything about it. You have to go through. We have to do this, and that was it. People would freak out. They would freak out. Or what if they did an investigation of the police officer, and they spoke to the police officer, and he goes, oh, no, this happened, and then they made a decision and never spoke to you as the victim. That's the way the system is now. The Guam Board of Medical Examiners, as an example, is supposed to investigate these things for standard of care.
But they're not going to investigate their own. Yeah.
They won't. They investigated Asher's case. They refused to speak to me.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
As his father. I argued with Dr. Miyagi, SDA, on day one to examine my sick child. I argued with him. Day two, I've got somebody that's saying, oh, no, sorry, the doctors are busy today. Well, he's dying in front of them. I'm arguing with these people. Then Nathaniel Burke, who, by the way, has a conflict of interest because they all make money off the clinics, you know. So he goes over there and he gets their records and says, oh, the records look okay to me. Okay, that's it. No problem with this. Excuse me?
So do you know if anyone actually investigated the case when it was before GBME?
Yeah, Nathaniel Berg and the board, however they do it, they investigate it.
No, I mean a real investigator.
No, that's the idea of a real investigator. But the conflict of that is, and going back to Dr. Gill when she used to be a board member, she said clearly, she said many things, but she said we are setting up to have a peer review process. So in other words, if somebody gets hurt, injured, or killed by a doctor on the island, peer review means the other doctors do the same kind of work or go out and look and see what happened.
Yes.
They're not going to have an X-ray technician, a radiologist making a decision on what a pediatrician does. Imagine this. Oh, the clinic, no, we did everything we're supposed to do, the clinic says. And they said, okay, the clinic did everything we're supposed to do, there's no fault in this case. And they never spoke to me. I watched my son die in 2 offices. And they don't think they need to speak to me. That's what we're up against. That's the problem. So what we're talking about, it's not just arbitration. It's the ability they all want to cover for each other.
And these are the same people who make donations to these senatorial campaigns.
Absolutely. Yeah. The full circle.
And the governor.
That's right. That's right. You got the donation of the Dr. Cruz to Senator Louise is a good example of that, and all the rest of them. It goes around and around and around. Plus, they have family members. One of the during the information hearings, one of the Dr. Yasahara, do you know him? He used to be he's a dentist and he used to be the head of the dental board. I don't know if he still is, but he sat there and his testimony stands out. He sat there and he said, you know, I'm not here to. We're talking about the arbitration. He goes, I'm not here to talk about the pros and cons of arbitration. Everyone else has already done that. He said the problem that we have on Guam is that we don't have governing boards that are impartial and that people can go to. If we did, I'm paraphrasing, if we did, then we would have that a lot of the cases that would need to go for arbitration may not happen because these boards would be able to make impartial decisions. That's what he said. Senator Teresa Lai, he said, I said to him, your testimony is a breath of fresh air. That was her exact words to him. And you know what? He's absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. Because right now, we have governing boards, Guam Board of Allied Health, with members who have been on it for 20 years, don't even have ethical standards set up. We have the Guam Board of Medical Examiners who have conflicts of interest and refuse to meet with victims of medical negligence. They refuse. And that's what we have. That's why then you run over and you look at arbitration and you go, okay, where do we go? The board, medical examiner boards is the one that's supposed to take care of these things. On their website says, protect the public. I'd like to know where that starts and where that ends, because it doesn't sound that way. It sounds like protect the medical community. We have great doctors on Guam. I want to say, I had the same dentist for 25 years. All my kids have been to medical on Guam. Every once in a while, when somebody is not appropriate, in Port Asher, we had somebody that was inappropriate. It didn't think his time. It was worth his time. So the issue is, and the doctors keep telling me. I talk to many doctors, but they can't talk. They can't talk officially. The issue is, it's only a handful of bad doctors, a small handful, but it taints the community because the whole community runs around. because they're afraid of their own bottom line, maybe, I don't know, and protecting the bad doctors.
No, it's like the bad cops.
Yeah, same thing.
The good cops
The white-
protect the bad cops because they got the same badge.
White coat syndrome, I like to call it, and they protect it. They protect their own. They protect themselves, and that's really the issue. Do we want people on the island who injure or kill? And if we want to leave them here, shouldn't we investigate and find out what happened?
And shouldn't our senators want this reasoning to translate into law?
It's common sense.
It really is.
It's not like I'm sitting here and asking, oh, we need to do this. Or it's not going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit Asher. But people that are watching that have kids, let me tell you, you wake up in the morning and your child, next to your child, and the child is dead, and the doctors never came in the room all night, and they go, okay, have a nice day to you. You know there's a problem in the system. It creates apathy. Cops who can do whatever they want, continue to do what they want, there's no accountability, they become apathetic. A doctor who can kill you in the morning and go back to work in the afternoon is apathetic about his work. It happens all the time. This is one of the reasons I believe if you want to improve medical care on Guam, you make doctors accountable. The same way you make cops accountable. The same way you make senators accountable. The same way you guys are accountable. I can sue. Yeah, somebody can sue you, but you can't sue a doctor.
Yeah, someone did sue us.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of that. I know. I saw that. You don't have arbitration?
Yeah, I wouldn't want it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not the one paying for it. Go for it, right? That's what this community thinks. I'm not the one that's going to pay for it. Go for it. But you don't have the money to do it.
No,
you know what I mean?
No. And you know what? When this first started, everybody kept, and I realized that I got carried away with it. Was, poor people are discriminated and blah blah blah. And they started talking about throwing Dr. Shane, those folks who wrote the law for Tina Moon and Blas, started talking about throwing peanuts to these poor people so they can take the first step. But the fact of it all is greater than that. The fact of it all is this law has created apathy. It's dumbed down medical care on Guam. And if people don't think it's true, go through what I went through and look at people who refuse to get out of bed to check on a 5-year-old who's dying. Or say, oh no, the doctors are busy. We can't get you a doctor. No, blah, blah, blah. And you have to run to the hospital. Are you kidding me? This is the problem. The law has dumbed down medical care. They're apathetic. They're protected. They can get away with it. And then when they have senators who are on the take, not all, senators who are on the take for whatever that means, family, insurance company, donations, whatever that means, they're allowing this. Until one of them maybe has the same thing happen to them, they freak out and and they do something about themselves. But that's where we're at.
Or they just have enough money to get their kid or their grandma or their mom off island because they don't want to deal with the doctors here. You know what I'm saying?
Anne Marie says if doctors were held accountable, many lives could have been saved. They'd be more careful and diagnose them properly. Monica DeVera says one day we should all do an interview together for Dave, Faye, and all others who've lost a loved one. Monica's story is also very sad. Rita Faye Bomba says credentialing for physicians should include peer review, which you were talking about. Having said that, GMH, GRMC, as well as Naval Hospital can account for this concern. God bless you, boy. That was Zaya, right? Not you. Better not be that Corvette. I'm just kidding. So Monica says never give up.
I never will.
Well, obviously, because it has been a year and a half since at least we had this conversation, and all you've done is become more informed. You've informed more people. You've been you just don't stop advocating. And again, you don't have anything to gain from this.
No, Asher brought me to the table. Asher gave a face to this when I realized it. But then, and the loss is unbelievable for me. But then I'm looking at the corruption. It's corruption. This is corruption. This is clear corruption. These are the people that we elect that's supposed to protect us.
Absolutely.
And they're not. And you can go through it, who's getting those donations and what their reasons. It's corruption.
It's just all around.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know will it change or it won't change, but for sure, I'm never going to stop. Every time there's a new case that pops up, somebody sent me, I put it on one of my websites. I post it. Doctors, I post it. You got the veteran who's marching around out in front of Guam Regional Medical Center, Jim Mansfield. He says that they did stent surgery on him without his permission. Now he's in all kinds of pains. You got Annalyn Lagrimas, his father, who's been in the hospital for a year because of mistakes according to what Annalyn said they made, and he's been as bed sores, not getting any better, and he's been there, and they don't know what to do about it. And then they banned her from going to the hospital because she spoke out to the legislature or wherever else she spoke out.
Yeah.
And they banned her from seeing her father as a punishment. And you know why they can do that? Arbitration. And the list goes on. Baby Faith, my God. That little baby was just born. They kind of ignored her. So when they talk about, let's go back to the way it was, and do all the tests like we did in the past, and so Asher would still be here. Baby Faith would still be here, and many of the others.
Monica's son would
still be here. If they took time and said, okay, let's do it. Dr. Miyagi, my son is sick. Can you do something? He's here for a wellness exam. Wellness exam is a full exam, blah, blah, blah. He goes, no, we can't. They're not going to monitor him. He's sick. You need to examine him. No, we'll just blah, blah, blah. And I walked out the door. As I was walking out the door, after arguing with him, I almost turned back, and I see myself still, to this day, turn back and start screaming at him. And I thought, well, if I do that, I might get arrested with my boys and blah, blah, blah. So I said, oh, okay, I'll just go. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. I should have gone back into Shisha Miyagi and said, you need to examine him. I'm here for an exam. I'm paying for a wellness. He's sick. Examine him. And that's what a lot of people are afraid to do also. They're afraid to go in and yell at their doctor and say, no, I want him examined. And part of it is the insurance companies are saying, and there's protocols in the clinic. And that's a story in itself. The insurance companies say, no, we're not going to pay for all these tests because you didn't have a reason. Yeah, his fever was down, but he's had a fever off and on, and I gave him fever medicine. So examine him. A CBC would have showed that my son was, CBC, basic blood test, would have shown my son was in trouble. It would have shown without, or examining him with a stethoscope would have shown he was in trouble. I could hear it. I saw it. I was with him. And so forth. But this is the problem that we're running into. And no one cares. The people that are elected, they don't care. They don't care. They might think they care. I think Theresa Delahaye cares because she did all of that. But when it comes to push to shove, you've got people who, like Tina Munya Barnes, let doctors write the new law. What a joke that is. Yeah. That's even more restrictive.
Yeah. It really is sad. There's an election coming up in November. There's a primary, but it's just inconsequential except for the congressional race. Congressman Mike St. Nicholas came out to support the position of medical malpractice reform. Yeah, he made that public statement with us. So that, that's a good thing. But this is a local issue that we're dealing with here, and it really is our senators and our governor. There's an election coming up in November. We're going to try and get the new candidates to say something about this issue. You've tried. We're going to try. We're going to reach out as well. Because we have to ask them about this and other issues. And we're going to continue our fight along with you.
I appreciate that very much.
Not a problem. Is there anything you wanted to add, Dave?
No, I could go on and on all night. Once I get talking, I don't like getting on camera. But once I start talking, I don't know I'm on camera. It's like never. But I thank you, and I thank everybody that's watching. And I just
you got a lot of people watching.
Those of you that might doubt about this, as I start to say, there's two sides of the bridge. It's the side of the bridge that we're on now, who have dead relatives or children and relatives, and we went through this. And there's the side of the bridge that you're on, and you haven't experienced this. And I've had people cross over to the bridge and tell me, I didn't know what you were going through until now. I mean, that's how much time this has taken. I don't want you to end up on our side of the bridge. That bridge is arbitration. We need to get rid of it, make people accountable. If somebody can kill your kid before lunch, wash their hands, go eat a tuna sandwich, and then see another child with no one knowing about it, that's just not right. And that has to change. That has to change to protect your families. Really. Thank you.
You should have run for senator.
I only have an interest in one issue, and the issue is that parents and family members don't suffer the way I did because, people I've spoken to, like all these kids, as an example. Do I have their names here? Like remember Aiden, as an example. You got Aiden, medical malpractice. I think that was FHP. Asher. You got Baby Faith. You got Joaquin. You got Charlie. You got Anna Grimace's father. The list goes on and on. This wouldn't have happened if doctors did the extra tests that they were told they don't have to do anymore because they're not going to be sued because of arbitration, which creates apathy in the medical community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Candid Land, for joining us tonight. For Candid News, I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm half Johnny Rosario. Sorry, guys.
And this
is Asher.
Asher Dean.
and Zaya's over there. He's the one who was coughing.
And sneezing.
Making all that noise.
Making all that noise.
And our producer, Eric Rosario. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.